Talafalava and welcome to the Global Pacific Success Podcast. I'm Andrew Fa'avali, your host. Every week I'll be chatting with successful Pacific people from across the globe, unpacking their stories and more importantly, picking out insights, lessons and golden nuggets you can use to live your best life too. Welcome to the Global Pacific Success Podcast. It's Andrew Fa'avali here, your host. Today we have a very special guest based out of Papua New Guinea. For most of the world, we know that it's like a religion over there. We know that most of the population are waiting in anticipation for the PNG Chiefs to enter the NRL. But more than that, I think there's a lot more off the field that the PNG Chiefs can contribute to the nation building, to the sense of collective aspiration and hope. And really keen to dive in with the Chief of the Chiefs, Lorna McPherson, who's joining us today from Port Moresby. So thank you so much, Lorna. How are you going?
Thank you, Drew. Good day I'll get for everybody in Papua New Guinea, and hello to everybody else across the Pacific. I'm going really well. Fantastic to be here, to be honest. Very excited to be in the role and looking forward to the big challenge ahead.
Yeah, cool. So like I said, I'm really keen to understand where you're at. If we just paint a picture of where the Chiefs are at and, since your induction, just to get some context, I'd love to throw back to your story, your background story and how you landed in the Pacific, and then also just what your hopes and aspirations are for this really exciting team, the Chiefs, who are entering the competition soon. So, yeah, can you just give us a little bit of a background around your role as chief executive, as the inaugural chief executive, what your main remit is and the mandates that you're looking to achieve?
Yeah, so of course, being the CEO, for me, it's kind of being the leader of an orchestra, and I'm making sure that everything runs the way that it should be. So we have a very strong football department, we have a very strong operations department, very strong commercial department, and that the whole organisation comes together, but also creating those values about what being a PNG chief actually means for people as well. So I'm really creating the organisation from scratch. I'm employee one, I have a left hand, a right hand, I have employee two, Michael Shamas. We've now got a coach, but of course he's not in place yet, and we are slowly but surely starting to really sort of drive the sort of acquiring our team and our administration and then our football team as well. So for me, it's
cool.
Kind
so
of
how many months have you got left?
Huh?
And how many months have you got left until you guys enter?
So 23 months and counting is the way that I look at it, and kind of, have a plan for every month that needs to be sort of hit to actually get there as well. So, but of course it's so exciting because we've already got the coach, which is great, and we've got a fabulous coach as well. So, we're off to a good start too. So we had lots of conversations about how he wants to build the team. But of course, as you know as well, with the with NRL and with the rules as well, we can't go into negotiations at certain times within the sort of next 23 months. So, but we're really excited about the road ahead.
Cool. So let's pause there and let's jump back to, your roots. Obviously, a thick Scottish accent. So just tell us about where you were born. What you were interested in when you grew up, and how you actually came to be located there in Port Moresby, in PNG.
Yeah, so if I get overly excited being Scottish, I go very, very fast. But if I'm being very hopefully you can understand me. So basically, I come from a very small village in Lanarkshire. Well, it was small at the time when I was there, and mum and dad are Scottish, and I basically was in telecommunications, travelled all over the world, and I had been in Saudi Arabia working. And I got offered a role within a country called Papua New Guinea. He said to me, New Guinea, and I was like, wow, where is that? I thought it was in Africa. At the time, so completely, having that moment where I really didn't know where I was going. Did a bit of research, realised it was Papua New Guinea in the South Pacific. And I set off on the journey, took my young boy with me, David, and both of us came to Papua New Guinea way back end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And David came with me, went to school in Papua New Guinea. But when I landed, got to the airport, there was no roaming at the time. And nobody came to get me. And I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? I've got my boy with me. We've travelled so many hours to get to PNG from Scotland. So eventually, I think about 3, 4 hours afterwards, somebody rocked up in a car. As we just stood there, I made sure he had some water. And I thought I just have to stand and wait. In true PNG time, eventually somebody came to get me, and I kind of got myself established there as well. So set off on the journey, and absolutely sort of fell in love with PNG. But it's really funny, being Scottish. Scotland is very similar to the Pacific, and also to PNG with our culture, with our heritage, family orientated as well. So when I got off the plane, I didn't feel that I was in somewhere that I didn't feel at home, if you see what I mean.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
so
think
tell us about it. Tell us about the village culture, especially up there in Scotland. You're saying it was a small village town, so everyone would have known each other, kind of similar to a village in the
like
Pacific.
my gran would, it was really funny when I was young, when you're dating people, my gran would say to me, or boo boo as we would say in PNG, don't you be talking to that boy, he doesn't come from a good family. And they gossiping on my aunties and my cousins, and we knew everybody. You knew everybody in the town. You walked down, it was somewhere that you felt safe, you walked about. The culture was amazing where I came from in Lanarkshire, and I absolutely adored that part of it. Mum and dad, I'm very lucky. My dad's 88, mum's 85 and still alive. And, that culture is still there. My father would say, you make sure you're home at 5 o'clock on a Sunday for your dinner, because we always had 5 o'clock. You'd be at church on Sunday morning, and then you'd be home for dinner as a family on a Sunday evening. And my dad still to this day, 88, if I'm in Scotland, I have to be home for dinner.
Yeah, it's cool because, coming into the interview, I thought, oh man, you couldn't really get more different, but actually there's a lot of sameness there that you've just outlined. I think it was because, the closest I got to Scotland was my brother lived in Clifton for a period in the northern parts of England, and that was freezing. So I guess climate is the main differentiator. But so you moved there with David, your son.
Yeah.
That speaks to a lot of courage for you to take your son to another part that's really foreign, though. How was that courage fostered? Or yeah, what
Well, first of all, I always believe the fact if you teach kids, I had already been traveling, I had been,
in
in
Saudi?
different parts of the world as well. But I also believe in the fact if you teach children about culture and respect for different cultures that you come across too, it makes them a very different person. And it was really funny when David went to university, I sent him back to Scotland to go to
Oh,
uni. And one of the things when he got interviewed for his course as well was his understand. They asked, there's a lot of kids had sort of applied for the course, and David was basically had went and said he'd been at school in Papua New Guinea, but also when he talked to them and he went for the interview, he really understood culture. So when people are coming from all over the world, when you've got that understanding and that respect, it's quite amazing, to be honest. David's 6'4", blonde boy, and he still says he's from Papua New Guinea as well. So he has a love for Papua New Guinea. When he got married, he said to his wife to be, unless you come over and you love PNG the way I do, I can't marry you. So he brought her to Papua New Guinea, and the poor girl get made to come to Papua New Guinea, but she absolutely loved it as well. But it was funny because he really felt that way. And I remember him, he hadn't been in PNG for about 4 or 5 years, got off the plane, and first thing he did was go and find my housemate who'd taken care of him. And because Moscow was like a second mum to him, it wasn't like, she was somebody who worked for me. She was his mum. She made sure he was always okay. So it's things like that I think when you come from you're a foreigner and you come to a different country, it's about how you show respect for that culture, how you show that understanding. And I really say that to a lot of people that come off the planes, and it's something that we should be honoured that we're here. We should be honoured that we're bringing value to a country, but we also respect that culture and understand it, really understand the culture. But it's funny, I never understood Papua New Guinea until I became part of a Papua New Guinean family. So my partner's Papua New Guinean, and so that for me as well was, I used to think I understood things, but it wasn't until I became part of that culture that I really started to really understand where that came from. And so that was an interesting part of my journey as well.
yes, I can hear culture's been weaved through. You've obviously gone from the Northern Hemisphere, you've stopped off in the Middle East, and now you're here in the global South and the South Pacific. Saudi Arabia, probably when you were there, was a little bit more closed. Like before the war, anyway. the ruling families in there over there were really opening up, and you could see a massive influx of people, even through sport. The fight game was really, all those high level, high end, high professional boxers were over there, and all the fighters were over there. It would have been a really different context from when you were there, though. And so, how was that for you when the culture was, well, the practice of culture was different, but the values might have been what was perceived as the same?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I had to, and when I was there, I had to wear my abaya and a shela while I was there because anybody who was working in Saudi at the time had to wear that out of respect again. But again, it was understanding that culture and understanding the people. So, it was something I think David also was with me as well and went to school in Saudi Arabia. So he's learned so many languages as he's went along. He can speak a little bit of Arabic, he speaks a little bit of German, he speaks Pidgin, and he also speaks a little bit of Moton from PNG time. So it's those things. It's about really. I always say this to people when you travel as well, and I think so many Pacific Islanders as well live in other parts of the world too, and it's about really understanding the culture that you go to, and that makes you fit. If you see what I mean,
Yeah.
because if you can understand people, you understand the culture, you show respect for the environment you're in. And I also try and create that environment where we're all equal as well, and I think that's something that's so important too. And having strong Christian principles in my life too, I think also helps.
Cool. So let's jump into PNG there. You've talked about values, you've talked a lot about respect and then Christian principles. You've talked about belonging too. In terms of your professional role, you talked about football, ops, and commercial, and bringing those parts of the business together, and then leadership. So, what are the values of the PNG Chiefs?
I mean, for me, it's about honesty. It's about building a team that has that transparent governance is very strong for us as a team as well. And as we create the values, I mean, some of the values will sort of morph as we go forward. But I think having that very honest and open and culture values is something that's really important to us. And we're working on all the different values that we have as an organisation. But I mean, as a person, I think for me, that honesty is a big part of who we are and what we're trying to create as well. But also the fact of belonging and family is really, really important to us as well.
Cool. Yeah, well, maybe traditionally, but in a traditional lens, you've come from a very individualistic culture. Like from theory, it comes from an individualistic culture. You've landed in a collective culture. Um, and this is what we're kind of tussling in the diaspora too, is like, how do we, as Pacific people who are landed in Australia and stuff, kind of the opposite, how do we bring the best of both worlds? What is your take on bringing the best of both worlds? Because I think that's the beauty. It's not a, oh man, this is a different culture. It's, oh man, awesome. This is a different culture. And how do we bring the best of all the different worlds together? What is your take on that, and how's your approach to that in leading this new our team?
I mean, if you think about it, I'm going to have, if you think about the team and you look at all the skill sets that you've got out there, I will have people from Australia, people from
Yeah,
Papua New Guinea, people from Pacific, because there's lots of different, there's
yeah,
Pacific rugby league players out there. So you're going to have lots of different cultures behind that. So one of the things that I've always had is belief in the fact of teaching each other culture as well. Where do you come from? What do you stand for? And having culture days where people stand up. And it was something that we did in previous shows as well, where you actually explain about where you came from, what life was like. Sometimes even wearing your own traditional dress as well from your own country is something that's really, really respected too. But one of the things I find very special about in Papua New Guinea and is on the Independence Day is actually quite often we are allowed to dress up as well with some of the tribes that we've been adopted by. So of course my
awesome.
partner's village came up and they've done all the different tattoos, but they've explained them as well. So like in the
Mm,
women's tattoos, what the meaning behind them is, because everything has different meanings and different stories. And I think when you understand stories and storytelling, and you
yeah.
understand what you're wearing, so and why you're wearing it and why the tattoos are the way they are and the dresses is there, and I learned how to dance. And so in my previous role with Digicel, I would dance with all the team. and from the central area. And I did it with pride because I feel I'm part of that village anyway. And they came up and they dressed me properly. And that was such a moment for me of acceptance. It was also a moment of me of understanding that that's something that has to be reflected as we grow the team as well, is everybody understanding each other's culture. Because once you understand that, you can respect it. It brings that family side of things, and it brings that coming together as a team, because it's about one team. And, for me, one PNG and one Pacific, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, it's I think it's coming from Samoa where because we've obviously set up an office there in Port Moresby, and when I first flew in, I was thinking, whoa, this is way different to Samoa. It's massive. And then when I landed and I talked to everyone, what I really got was there was a real sense of a desire for nation building. Everyone really wants to get better, but two, also that there's such diverse nuance, whether you're in the Highlands or the Central Province or, wherever you are, there's a real distinct difference as well because it's such a large landmass, which means, up in the Highlands, you're dealing with that low cloud. On the coast, there's a different kind of vibe, in Ley or Port Moresby, it's a different vibe. So what happens there and what's your take and how did you find that when you first arrived?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has like sort of different takes on what region that they come from in PNG. So it is unique. And now I'm used to, I can even see how some of these facial features, where they would come from within Papua New Guinea. I've got used to that as well. But something I reflect in my own culture has been Scottish too. And I'm definitely not English. So when you say to yourself, you've got the whole of the UK, right? And I'll use that as a good example. So you've got Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. And so we're all very different. We all speak differently. So in Scotland, if you come from different parts with different accents, I have
Yeah.
a really strong Glaswegian accent, hence
Right.
you'll all struggle with it. Um, but other people don't. Some parts of Scotland sound as if they're singing, and we all have different tribes. So we have different kilt colours for different tribes that we come from, our clans, as they say as well. So it's very similar to Papua New Guinea. But you put on
Yeah.
a Scotland strip and you put on Scotland, I become Scottish.
Yeah.
They play England and I become very Scottish. And it's the same when Papua New Guineans put on their Kummel shirts, which is the national team. They become completely PNG. You don't hear them saying, well, you're from the Highlands or you're from the Central or you're from, it becomes a united country. And I think that for me excites me, how the PNG Chiefs will bring everybody together. And I use a good example. I mean, I've been involved in footy for 16 years, 17 years now here in PNG. And when the Engen Meoks were basically in the quarterfinals, the tribes that were having some issues with each other forgot that they were fighting tribes because they realised they were actually Meoks in the quarterfinal, and all of a sudden they were Engens, and so when you see things like that happen, right, isn't it again just respecting each other and then realising that we're all one, and all one people. And my mum and dad taught me that when I was young. They said, it's really funny, and not that I want to be using this in a podcast, but everybody has to go to the toilet at the end of the day. We're all human, human bodies all work the same way. We don't have anything different, right? We've got a heart, and that was something that I think mum and dad really drilled in to me as a person, about the fact that we're all equal. We just have different shades of skin, but as a human, we're all the same. And so that was something that I've really tried to and like push my own kids, but also in any environments that I've been in when I've been in charge of those roles.
Yeah, because telecommunications is not an easy sector from the outside. When we go through Samoa, there's Digicel Vodafone fighting over every village, it feels like. So how was that? Because that's a obviously you've got to build systems like every business, but then you've got a massive mass market and mass marketing kind of thing that you have to do. But also then in the Pacific, there's the politics internally and then geopolitically. So how did you, while we're all the same, not all of us have gone through the same experiences, and I think we can glean off some of the things that you've done. How was that experience of leading Digicel in that environment and having to have all those intersections at play?
Yeah, it's funny, and I think though it's really funny. I actually was in Samoa for quite a few months with Digicel as well, so I've been across the Pacific roles as well. But certainly within Papua New Guinea too, I think it was about really, as we were rolling out the network and we were going to different places, it was kind of like learning as we, to be honest, we did learn as we went along. We learned about how to be competitive. We learned about how we would build in different areas, and everything was different. The interesting thing with PNG as well is the fact that you've got so many different landowners, right? And you have one bit of land, and you might have 1,000 people saying that they own that bit of land. So, how do you come together and solve all the different problems that you have? I think the interesting part for me was again understanding culture and realizing that storytelling and actually getting everybody around a table, and I don't mean a table in an office. Quite often it would be sitting outside and we'll just sit down round the fire, and people tell, but also the fact of listening. So I used to be like, you talk, you talk, you talk. And I used to listen to what everybody wanted to try and then work out to my head, how am I going to solve this, or how do you fix that? Because if you listen and you let people talk, you can really learn a lot as a leader and as a person when you're, especially operations and changing things and driving things as well. So, but it's funny because Digicel here is the same. We've got competition, but we, now I'm no longer with Digicel. But again, we had the red and white everywhere exactly the same as it was in Samoa and so we all had the same problems, but I think Papua New Guinea we were really unique. We had a lot more problems with the likes of landowners driving things and making sure that we were delivering on time. PNG is not an easy country to be able to build because quite often there's not any main roads, there's not any power. So you really have to think on your feet at one point. But I think getting the communities behind what you were trying to achieve was really important too. So
yeah. We've kind of proven that because Digicel has been a big sponsor of rugby league in PNG for a long time. And so you've been in the rugby league game for a long time. Did you grow up following rugby league? Scotland's not really traditionally known as a rugby league place. It's more football and stuff. But what were you following when you were young?
So I was very much a union girl.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you a funny story, and this was really being a blonde person. And so I went to my first game of. So they say rugby in PNG because rugby league.
Yeah, it's rugby league.
So they didn't say footy or league or anything like that. So and I thought, okay, so I went to the game. It was at the old Port Moresby Rugby League stadium at the time, not what we have now. And I remember watching it and standing there going, oh, gosh, they don't know how to play rugby. Because not knowing, I had never heard it being Scottish, I'd never heard the league. And so for me, I was kind of like, wow. And then eventually the penny dropped that this was not union. It definitely was not a version of Papua New Guinea. Just decided that they've interpreted it a different way. And then I realised it was league. And the excitement for the league for me was the fact it was much faster and a bit more exciting than union. But yeah, I mean, I played hockey, I played badminton. Like I was a big sports girl, but union was my passion. And I also love to watch soccer, as you guys would call it, but I call that football from being Scottish. So I used to always watch. I was a big Man United fan and a big Motherwell supporter from Scotland. So sports always been something that I've followed. But yeah, so when I came, that was it. And basically, I remember watching my very first game, and it was all men. There really wasn't many women at the game, and I was like, that's a bit strange, and it just wasn't quite what I was used to. So I remember watching though the amount of people were at the game, and I thought, this is something that's unique. We should sponsor that. So at that point, I went back and spoke to Digicel and the powers that be. Dennis O'Brien was the big boss man then, and the boss. So persuaded that Dennis and John Mangos was the CEO and the team, and said, guys, we need to. This is something we should capture this. But it wasn't like giving sponsorship the way you just hand over your money. So I got involved and became part of making sure that the game was run the way that it should be, and that was my journey every weekend of my life. And as much as Digicel paid me a salary, they didn't pay me to work at the weekends. So, but I did it because I absolutely loved it, and I could see what it could do for a country.
Yeah, so let's touch on that then, what it can do for a country. So that was where before it had a chance to jump into the NRL. Now we've got this platform where we can go into the world's hardest and most competitive, you know, competition for rugby league, and a product that's really taken off, especially over the past 6 or 7 years. I think they've got the
Yeah.
rules right, they've got the tribalism right, they've got the personalities in that. That's a really great product. Unfortunately for rugby, it's it's an easy comparative, but I don't see the progress, in my own opinion, I don't see the progress in rugby kind of going that way. And we've unfortunately seen Moana Pacifica, not entering the competition again after this year. What do you reckon, both in terms of the game and what you just touched on, more than the game, what are your ambitions for nation building, for aspirations of the youth, for female participation in the women's game, etc.? What are you seeing for that?
So one of the things over really the last sort of few years, as part of the Digicel ExxonMobil Cup, and also with the PNGRFL, we really started really developing the pathways, and also the women's game. So we launched a new competition, which was the Santos Cup. And I'm not ashamed to say we're kind of forcing all the Digicel ExxonMobil Cup teams to have a women's team as well, if they want to participate and get their license. I'm not ashamed of that, to be honest, because
Cool.
the game wasn't. We hadn't driven the women's game. We hadn't invested as much money in the women's game. In fact, no money in the women's game compared to what we have in the men's game. And that can also be a bit culture as well, about women playing rugby league and things like that too. So we kind of forced the issue, if I'm being really honest with you, but I think it's the right thing, and it's the right thing we do it. But also we forced the issue in the pathways as well. So we've really worked to get the pathways up and running and develop the academies, the NRL bid academies that we started to develop. And of course, those are now morphed across to the PNG Rugby League academies too. So those will be the feeders for the Chiefs, and also, for me, the aspirations is to have a women's team in the NRL. Probably maybe 2032 would be my aspiration, as in trying to really push that and push the agenda to get that team there. So really important for us. And one of the other things we did as well with Digicel too was when we were sponsoring the national team, we were in the back of the shirt for the Kumals. When we renegotiated the contract, we said, no, we're going to give 50% of our budget to the Kumals and 50% to the Orchids, so that everything was equal. And that was to help drive the girls and really show that belief in the girls. Now, the young girls they're not as strong as the likes of a lot of the other teams out there, but that's again because they haven't had the game to develop them. They haven't had the structure. They've not had that support. And so, it's something that we should also be ashamed of, the fact that we haven't done that too. So, they get a lot of stick sometimes in social media because they're not winning, but something, shame on us all, because we didn't put enough effort in our girls. Now we are, and now we've got a new coach coming on board, to push the Orchids as well. And so really excited about that. And I think that investment too. So, so you can see it. So would I love to have a Chiefs women team right now? Yeah. Is it possible? Probably not at this point in time for PNG, but can it be? Absolutely. And we're going to drive that forward totally. So completely focused on it. So yeah, so you'll just see the women's game growing and growing and growing.
Awesome, congratulations, and it wouldn't have been easy, but like you say, you're not ashamed, or you're out there saying it, that you're absolutely there to grow the women's game. You've got a really massive catchment. It just depends on whether, like you think about the Penrith catchment and, what they've done. You've seen so many of their juniors go into all these teams, Blue Eyes and all those guys in Tigers and the Canterbury. The Warriors are another one, and then the Brisbane Broncos are another one that come to the top of my mind. But I guess their systems have been different to PNG. If we think about just on the numbers, you've got a really good catchment. Where's the gaps then for PNG as they enter the NRL?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm looking to do is to try and kind of force an under 21 team into one of the competitions abroad next year. So working on that.
Yeah.
But I believe in it. So I believe in about developing my youth in Papua New Guinea, right? Because ultimately, if you look at the likes of, we've kind of set some thresholds about how many Papua New Guinean people and team members we want in our Chiefs team as well. I'm not ashamed of that either, is to set a threshold and say that is the threshold. I really, it's something about driving that agenda and really making sure that our boys and our kids and our girls get that investment, because it's the PNG Chiefs and that's what needs to happen. So I am absolutely not ashamed of it. If you look at likes of the Hunters, we had about 7 of the young boys went across, because I saw them when I was last in the UK, and went across to the Broncos as well and pushed that agenda. So they're all over there playing just now under Jason Dimitri. And so that's all going really, really well, and they're playing amazingly. So you can look at some of the stuff that's going on there too. So all the pathways that we started to develop are there. One of the things as well, it's interesting, if you look at like the encapsulation area, right, of the likes of Panthers or some of the other teams, it's like a certain area, and kids can come and they can go for training, they can go home at night and have their dinner.
Yeah, that's right. This is the business of it.
Papua New Guinea, you can't do that. So one of the things that is our design for the Centre of Excellence is to also have some children's dorms, kids' dorms on it. So we're going to have dorms for boys and dorms for the girls, because when we bring them into Port Moresby, we have to have somewhere that keeps them, they can stay and they can, live. And so that's very different. Again, it's just understanding that when we were, when you're designing, it's about make sure that you create the right environment for the country that you live in as well. So we had to think about lots of different things with that. But of course, having that experience of being in PNG, it's one of the things that was really important for us as well to get that. So it's really exciting to be able to do things that are different as well. But we are different, and the dynamics of the country is very different than anywhere else. So you have to think with your PNG hat on too.
And so what does success look like for you? What is the definition of success, especially over the next 5 years? Because what I can expect is that, they're crazy about rugby league over there, and that's great. How do you manage expectations with because coming in is not easy. I think the Dolphins did pretty well in the first half of that first season, especially. They did really well under Bennett. But how do you manage expectations as well as keep our eyes on the longer prize and the longer sustainable future?
Yeah, I think, look, at the end of the day, I think high performance starts with clarity. If I'm being really honest, that's how I feel. People really need to know what's expected. I think also how success is measured as well, but then also where accountability sits too. So I think it's about having those clear expectations for everybody, so everybody's very clear within the team what's expected of them as well, but also setting expectations as well for our fans too. But let me be really clear, I am in it to win it. There is no doubt about it. Can't say I'm not. So, but I'm also a realist as well. So for me, it's about, you walk before you run. Do I think that we'll lift the NRL trophy in the first year? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I mean, when I mean in it to win it, I'm looking at a long-term goal. But do I think we'll win the trophy at some point? Yes. I'd love to be in the top 8 in the first year. That would be something that for me would make me smile. I'd like to be further up, but of course, I'm also a realist as well. So it's about really having those honest conversations about building the team, bringing clarity to the team, accountability, but also for us all to know our own roles within the team, so what each of us play and the value that we bring. I'm quite honest. I can look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, I'm really good at that, but I'm really not so good at this, and I know where my strengths are and where my weaknesses are, and I'm not ashamed to admit them either, because that's what makes teamwork, where you team come together, people play. And if you look at the likes of any sport, it's about having that role and knowing when to pass the ball, and that's the same right in the whole organisation, because if the whole organisation doesn't create that team feeling, then we won't be able to function as a team. So that's my job, is to create that and be the conductor, to make sure that we conduct the orchestra, but we also, we're able to pass the ball and at the right time to each other too. So really important.
So this is a podcast about success and success specifically in the Pacific. But I just want to get a little bit more. I love what you said about the clarity. I also hear that you're really audacious and you're willing to force things to happen that you really believe in. Though you have to have the belief that underpins why you would make such a courageous action. So if you're thinking about, so we know you've chosen the coach. He's still obviously in the Super League at the moment. What were the metrics for you for a successful coach selection?
So it was really interesting because we had lots of different people involved in the coaching process. So we had quite a team who were doing the interview. Some very strong on coaching, others, and my part as well was also part of the culture too. So for me, it was about, first of all, looking at them as a person and making sure they were very successful as an individual and a coach, and looking at that. But it was also about somebody who really understood culture, somebody who understood values, somebody who demonstrated that when you spoke to them as well. And it was something like Willie Peters really stood out to me. Just the way that he behaved and his understanding, the research he had made in it, but also the passion he had. And then the interesting part that many people don't know was the fact that he also could have stayed at Hull Kingston Rovers for an extra year, right? So he could have stayed for another year, but he's chosen to come to us this year. Why? Because he said, I want to build the team. I want to be part of it. I want to go out, make sure that the pathways have been set up right, make sure that we're creating the right environment to end. And those types of behaviours for me were something that I value an awful lot, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's really, he demonstrated that very clearly. His understanding coaching, all of that was all there. All the coaches that we interviewed were all really good coaches, but I just felt that Willie's ability and his understanding of what we were trying to create was there, and that team values and how you would create that culture. Because remember, the team's going to be staying in the same location. The apartments are all together, so it's like going back to COVID days.
Yeah.
To an extent. I mean, you can go out and drive your car and off you go, but you're still in a bubble to an extent. And so we needed somebody who really could make sure that all of that would work as well. And I'm really inspired by the guy as well. So yeah, and I think that for me was really, really, really important. That winning culture, but also and proving he was a winner too. But also as a point too, England were after him as a coach, and so were another couple of the clubs, if I'm being really honest with you. So for us, I think it's a win for Papua New Guinea and for the Chiefs.
And then what about the roster? What about the list? What are you looking at? Because we've got really great players already in teams. Alex Johnson just came through with the highest, try scorer in the NRL, which is great. And then the other wing, you've got Coates, and you've got people like,
I cannot. Yeah. I can't because I really like with the rules of the NRL. That's the one thing that I'm really I can't say. But what I can say is the fact. What I can say is the fact that there's a lot of good players ready to sign in November, as in their contracts are up. So masses of talent out there, and we are in there to have a winning culture. We are in there to be winners, no question about it. So you will see some really good players coming on board. And there's a lot of interest in the PNG Chiefs. And also, I think having a fabulous coach like Willie Peters for any youngsters as well, what a great opportunity to have a fantastic coach like Willie. So I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Cool. And then speaking about, I guess not talking about the current roster, then what about old players like the Marcus Byes, David Meads, and these kinds of guys, Stanley Ginner, and will they be involved just to provide mentorship and stuff like that? Is that the plan?
So Marcus is already he's a director on our board.
Oh,
So
yeah,
which is great. So he's a expert on the board in footy. So you couldn't get anybody better than Marcus.
that's right.
Yeah, so he's already there, and I mean, I can't tell you the people that we're talking to, but believe me, we've got some really strong Papua New Guineans, and I can't mention any of the names. We are in discussions about to bring on board as well. So it's about bringing everybody there. So so that people understand the culture, because we are the PNG Chiefs, no question about it. So we have to make sure that that happens as well. And even administration, set a threshold for how many Papua New Guineans will have in the admin side, and grow over a 5-year period. So there's really not very many foreigners left, because to get high-level sports administrators is not easy. So it's all about making sure that we have that training programs in place. How do we develop everybody? But it's also, it's been amazing for me, the support from all the other NRL clubs. Absolutely phenomenal, because I am the only female CEO in the NRL, and the boys have just been fantastic. I've been down at the Dolphins, I've been at the Eels, I've been at the Broncos, I'm going down to the Rabbitohs, and honestly, I cannot fault them. They're all really wanting to see us do really, really well. And I'm thank Andrew Abdo and also Peter Berlandis for really creating that culture where they're really helping us. They really have went that extra mile. So I'm feeling very comfortable about the support I've got.
What I often find when I talk to successful people, and especially leaders, is when they do things like break heaps of ceilings, they just kind of think that it's normal. And I'm kind of getting the sense of that from you, that you've broken ceilings, whether it's around women in leadership or just leadership in general, global entities, and things like that. How does I know it's hard when you're the person I'm talking about, but can you see that in yourself?
Probably not. No, I'm sure some of them can't when I get a bit annoyed about a few things now and again as well. So I have my moments where sometimes I think to myself, shouldn't have done that, Lorna, ouch, but I think, one of the things I think as a leader, I'm very honest with myself, and what I do as a leader as well is I look at people and I know my weaknesses, and I pick people that naturally you maybe wouldn't go out and want to have a drink with or a meal with, but they have the skill sets that you don't, and therefore when you create your team, you create the areas that you're really weak in, because you don't need two Lornas,
That's
right?
right.
What you need is somebody else who doesn't have the skill sets that you need, that because you don't have them. So I think sometimes if you're really honest with yourself, but normally people that have the skill sets that you don't need are not the natural ones. When you do an interview, you'd be saying, oh, they're fabulous. It's somebody you would say to yourself, goodness me, oh, you don't want to be stuck in a lift with them for an hour, but the skill set is absolutely critical to success. And so therefore, as a leader, you've got to be able to adapt and then say, okay, they're very opposite from me, but how do I make them feel special and be part of the team as well? So, and I also say that to a lot of people, learn to be a chameleon, able to put different personality hats on and adapt to the environment you're in.
If you think about business, you're dealing with the board, or especially in the Pacific, you're dealing around geopolitical and international relations. Which one are you most comfortable with, if there's one? Being that chameleon, like, how do which one is of those settings most comfortable, and why would the other one not be as comfortable?
Gosh, that's a really, ooh, trying to think about an answer for that one. I never thought about that. Look, the board's much easier to deal with, right? Because you get to know the board really, really as individuals, and you get to know what they like, what they don't like, and if you don't know your own board as a leader, then you're really silly. So you get to know what their nuisances are, how they like things prepared, how they like things presented, and so you learn to do that. With geopolitics, as an example, it can change 1 minute to the next minute, so it's much more difficult to read it. And I always say, I am Scottish. It's not something that's my fight as such. So I'd rather stay out of geopolitics, concentrate on the footy, make sure I deliver to my board and keep it all working really, really well. But I mean, but geopolitics is there. There's no question about it. We all know that in the Pacific, it's one of those things. But I like to respect everybody.
Just a couple more questions, if that's okay. They say when you go into business, you should think about your exit strategy. Have you thought about succession?
Yeah, so it's really funny. I'm my new I've got my new CFO. I won't say who it is just now, but he's joining us very soon, and he is his mum's from Pacific and his dad's Australian, and he's coming back from Australia to PNG as an example. So he's been involved in footy for a while too. I've got some strong Papua New Guinean females coming on board as well to my SMT and my team as well. So, so for me, it's about, when I hand over the reins, whenever that is, I'll be very proud to hand them over. I would love to be able to hand them over to one of my own senior management team, because then as a leader, I've got a big tick because I've done my job and I've been a really good coach. Because at the end of the day, that's what I am as well. So I would be very proud if I hand it over to somebody who works for me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and then my final one of my final questions in case is David. So where's David living now, and and what are your main takeaways as an executive and a mum?
Yeah, so really funny. So David's in Scotland, and he went back. He met an English girl, married her, and went back to Scotland. He would love to come to PNG, but they had, just because our mum and dad are not so good, and my mum and dad are not great either. He's been a really good son and supporting all the family too. He's having a new baby. I have one Charlie. From him, my older son Ryan, who didn't come with me at the time because he was a bit older, but I've got another two grandkids there as well. So yeah, so being a mum is really important to me as well. I spend a lot of time. I actually get out of my bed every day at 4:30 in the morning so that I can phone home, speak to the kids too, and make sure that I'm engaged with them, video call them. And my little grandson Charlie calls me Nino. And you see, I'm going to, he walks about with a suitcase, going to pack his suitcase because he's coming to Papua New Guinea to see me for his holidays. So, yeah, and my kids are all something that they understand PNG and what it means to me as well. But I think being a mum is really important. And then for all those girls out there too, it's never easy being a working mum and making sure that you're supporting your children, both from a financial point of view, but also from a sort of being a mum and really teach them how to go down that route. So David, yeah, so he's the head of cyber and data forensics for a big bank in the UK. Wow. He's done really, really well. And his wife, she's a cancer nurse as well. So both of them have done well. But again, it's just more than the fact giving them time. So you have to make time though as a leader for your family, and I really believe in that, is making time. I would like to go home a little bit more, but mum and dad not being so good. But the great thing is that my job allows me to kind of work and just be online too. So if I have to go home, I do. But I've got such a strong family unit that they all support my parents as well, which is great. So I'm very proud of my children.
All right, and so this is the final. If you could invite three people to dinner just to find out a little bit more about, what your interests are, whether they're alive or not here anymore, who would you invite?
Wow, who would I invite? Okay, Nelson Mandela would have to be one, because I think what he did with sports in the world, and with the bike, and how all that changed and how he changed his own country is something that really inspires me. So for definite, I'd love to have dad and mum together, if you see what I mean, because they're so old. To be able to get them back over, I'd love to have them in PNG. They never get seen Papua New Guinea, biggest regret. But so if I could magic that and have dinner in Papua New Guinea and bring them, that would be great. I'll count that as one. And then I think somebody else that really inspired me when I was young would have been my great grandfather, who went to war and got his jaw blown off in the war, fighting for to make sure that we all had sort of freedom to an extent. And so I'd love to have invited my great granddad back as well, just to meet him too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Lorna. It's a really insightful conversation that we've had. Like I said, I'm not sure if you can realize how inspiring your own story is, from that village in Scotland to leading the next NRL team. We see it as a massive privilege, and it must be a very big burden for you as well. But you're taking it all in stride, as it seems. But because you've got a lot of different inflection points and different moments in your journey that have been really courageous, whether you've gone and led Digicel or gone through to Saudi Arabia and all these other countries, being a working mother and all that kind of stuff. We think that it just sums or aggregates to a point where you're at where you can handle these massive tasks and initiatives, and still really come off really calm and peaceful and clear. So we wish you all the best. I know that everyone's really looking forward to this. Having gone to PNG a few times over the past year, especially, I can hear the anticipation that they've got and also the pride, even without rugby league, just around the nation. And so, as Nelson Mandela did with the Springboks, and being an All Blacks fan, we won't talk about the food and stuff, but. Um, but we hope that beyond the field, that this initiative and this team will be able to inspire many more. We know there's a youth bulge there in PNG, and so there's a lot of people to inspire, and we just look forward to seeing the fruit of the seeds that you plant, bud, and wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it as well.
Cool. Hopefully we can catch up when we come over there and put more.
Definitely. Let me know when you come.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lorna.
See you. Take care.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.